Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Honorable James Marape, the Chief Mourner, and co-host, Governor for National Capital District, Honorable Paus Pakop. I acknowledge the presence of the ministers and members of Parliament with us here tonight. I also acknowledge the Governor for East Sepik, Honorable Alan Bird, and former Minister for Foreign Affairs, Member for Itape Lumi, and Leader of National Alliance, Honorable Patrick Proit. I would like to say this to the family of Grand Chief Michael Somare. Mama Lady Veronica, Mother of the Nation, Sana, Betha, Arthur, Dulcie, Michael Jr., and the people of the Murik Lakes and East Sepik. On behalf of current and former public servants and professionals from Western Highlands Province, I would like to express to you our deep condolences at the passing of this great giant of a man, our role model in the public service as well, because he taught at one of our community schools in Western Highlands Province, Rugli Primary School as it was called then. We mourn with you at the great loss of our father. Words cannot express what we feel and also what the nation feels at this moment with the loss of our father. A deep sense of emptiness and void is within the hearts of all Papua New Guineans at this time. I first met this man called Michael Thomas Somare in high school when I was doing, during those times, Form 1 or grade 7 today, in 1971 at Mount Hagen High School. Grand Chief and a group of members of the then House of Assembly were making their tour all over Papua New Guinea. And they were telling the people what self-government and independence would mean for us when it comes. Although I did not understand much of it, I was still very happy to see this man I've heard so much about, Michael Somare. He was accompanied by others in the likes of Sir Peter Luz, Ruben Taureka, Ebi Olewale, Donatus Mola, Father John Momis, Boyamo Sali. I remember him because he was the youngest in the group. My direct contact with Grand Chief was in 1989 when I joined his delegation to go to Europe to attend the ACP EU Ministerial Council meetings in Belgium at that time, the capital of the European Union. He was then the Minister for Foreign Affairs, and the ambassador in Brussels at that time was Sir Brown Bai. That was also my first time to see Betha Somare, who came over from France to see her dad in Brussels. After the meetings in Brussels, the Grand Chief's delegation was to travel to Israel to sign a bilateral agreement with the government of Israel. And for that delegation, I was not included. That we realized when we were in Brussels. So the Grand Chief asked why is it that I was not included in the delegation. And he found out soon that the Department of Foreign Affairs at that time did not inform my office properly about this next sector of the trip. So he got so upset with the senior officer from the Foreign Affairs Department who traveled with us. And that officer happened to be from Mississippi as well. But the Grand Chief was so bitter about why I was not informed to travel with this delegation to Israel. That small incident, him getting on very bitterly against this particular officer, and he was a senior officer from CPIC, left something in me, so small as it is, but it left something in me that for the Grand Chief, it doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. We are all his children, and we must all be treated equally. That was the Somare I knew. Later, as I progressed in my career as head of the Office of International Development Assistance, or OIDA it was known then, I traveled with the Grand Chief to so many international meetings and conferences. And little did I know at that time that I would one day be serving as Papua New Guinea's ambassador in Brussels. And I was appointed as ambassador under the Chen government in 1995. I served for more than 8 years in Brussels, but was recalled by the Somare government in 2003 when I was appointed as Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Trade. I served in that post under the Somare government for 7 years before I left the public service in 2010. My last trip overseas with the Grand Chief was in 2010. The same year I left the public service, when he was the Prime Minister, and we traveled to Accra, Ghana in Africa, to attend the ACP heads of government meeting there. The ACP group of countries basically represents the countries of Africa, Caribbean, and the Pacific, who are former colonies of European countries, particularly Western Europe. So after a very long, tiring trip from Singapore to Abu Dhabi in the Middle East, I was having coffee with the Grand Chief at the Transit Lounge when he asked me whether the then Minister for Foreign Affairs, Sem Abal, had spoken to me about me moving to his department as Chief Secretary. He said Minister Abal was to report back to him in 3 weeks, but he had not done so. I told him that Minister Abal did talk to me about it, but I wasn't so sure whether the minister heard him correctly, because after serving 7 years in Foreign Affairs as the Secretary, my term was not renewed, and therefore I wasn't sure whether Minister Sem Abal heard him correctly. And I told him that the reason why he didn't get back to you is because I did not get back to him. And I told him then, in Abu Dhabi, that since I have now heard it from him, from the horse's mouth, I will apply when the position is advertised. He assured me then that I would be appointed. Unfortunately, the Grand Chief fell ill, and he went to Singapore, a hospital, and my term as Secretary for Foreign Affairs expired, so I left the public service. I would have loved to serve him as his Chief Secretary, but unfortunately couldn't because of the events that unfolded later while he was in hospital. I did, therefore, not serve under him in that capacity, nor in that capacity to the country. I saw that Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare was a very genuine man, He was a honest leader, and he was the true father of the nation for everybody. In Grand Chief's honor, at this time of his passing, I would like to urge the next generation of young leaders to not speak negatively about the leaders of the past, because that also includes the great chief, as far as so many people are concerned in this nation. You never traveled the difficult and rugged paths that Grand Chief traveled. So my plea to the next generation of leaders is, please respect the former leaders and appreciate the generation that did so much for this nation. That generation of Grand Chief, Sir Michael Somare and others, knew no corruption, saw no corruption, this deadly cancer that is fast destroying this nation. They were my heroes. Grand Chief Sir Michael would tell me many times, and he said, "Pepson, my generation of leaders did not have university degrees like you and you guys today. But my team of uneducated and semi-educated leaders had one purpose only, and that was to serve the people and the country with pure hearts, and that's exactly what we have done," he would tell me. And then he would also say, "Now you playa, educated leaders of today, you play using tripla, sabe blow you play long steel tasol." He would say that all the time to me. I could see and feel the father's genuine concern for his children, the people of Papua New Guinea. And now, I was so sad, and he was so sad to see a nation that he and his colleagues then, his team then, painfully built, sweated, put their lives on the line to build, was being ravaged by the next generation. I wish that that heavy burden that he had, and I knew that he had it, was lifted from him when he departed. He probably was more troubled then when he left because of the situation that we are confronted in with today than when he told me what he did in 2004 and many times thereafter. Representing the professionals from Western Islands Province and the next generation of leaders of this country, you referred to, Sir Grand Chief, I say to you, as you are resting now, we are sorry for taking the nation in the way you never intended it to be. To all the next generation of leaders, I say this: Grand Chief may have departed with a heavy heart because of what is happening in this country these days, especially in the area of corruption and good governance. The challenge for us leaders of today is to ask ourselves, what can I do personally to fight this cancer of corruption and restore it and to take the country back to where Grand Chief Somare and his team of uneducated, unsophisticated did and gave this country to us free. I would also like to share another dramatic experience that I had with the Grand Chief. As many of you may recall, in 2004, there was a heated discussion and debate about the Enhanced Cooperation Package, or the ECP, a package that was developed between the government of Papua New Guinea and Australia. And the Grand Chief was Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea then, and John Howard was the Prime Minister of Australia. They were two very hard men. And they were friends, but they disagreed on so many issues. And this was one of them, the Enhanced Cooperation Package. At that time, Serabi Namali was the foreign minister, and I was the secretary for foreign affairs. And we did our utmost to get these two great men together so that we agree on the issues, some aspects of the issues of the enhanced cooperation package. But we did not really succeed, Serabi and I. The ECP, or the enhanced cooperation package, essentially covered the areas of rebuilding the institutions of government, which the Australians felt was not so robust as it should be. Apparently, some of us also, me included, and Serabi, felt the same. They get a feel for work ethics, what it means to be committed to work. And the same was going to happen with Australians here, particularly to help us rebuild our institutions. And we thought that in doing so, we would, to some extent, try to attack this cancer of corruption. But Grand Chief at that time opposed it vigorously, and some of the members here of Parliament could attest to that. And not because he did not like the intent of the ECP. No, that wasn't it. But as a father of the nation, he did not want an outside influence in the running of this nation. That is simply why he never wanted the Australians to be here. So, because you see, he was coming from an age where he literally had to fight to gain independence, self-government and independence. And also, he was, and he would tell me many times, how he used to be mistreated by the Kiaps and other Australians who were here, and not only him, but so many other Papua New Guineans. So he said, no, I've had it with the Australians, I don't want them back. So that is the approach that he took at that time. He was so passionate about this issue to the extent that I saw, because I was in cabinet presenting this document, that so many ministers I found were very uncomfortable to say anything that was to the contrary of his views. And eventually, but the Grand Chief's concerns were legitimate. He did go through painful times some of us never went through. So that's the angle that he was coming from. So in one of my private meetings with the Grand Chief, I told him that as the Australians will now, through the ECP program, pay for some of the sins that they committed by giving us an additional 580 million Australian dollars on top of the 300 million Australian dollars annually that we receive from Australia. And at the same time, the program will do the work of rebuilding our institutions, and we can renew it again. And they will continue to put in 580 million for 3 years. And I also told Grand Chief that he was the boss of this country, nobody else, and that he will tell the Australians what to do with the money, not them. And I said to him that it is to rebuild these institutions of government which you created in independence. And that was a genuine ask from my heart to him at that time. But eventually, after a lot of persuasion from many people, especially Serabi Namaliu, senior statesman but Philemon, Bire Kimisopa, who was then but Philemon was the treasurer then, Bire Kimisopa was the minister for police, and other people. We kept on talking to the Grand Chief, and eventually he agreed to accept the ECP program. But it was short-lived, because the then governor for Morabel, Luther Wenger, took the matter to Supreme Court. It was declared unconstitutional, and the Australians had to leave. So when they left, we were left with a vacuum again for that unfortunate situation to have another alive. So the nation is still riddled, in my view, with the same problem today, in fact, much bigger now than before. It will be a daunting task for any government to tackle it completely, but I believe it can be done if leaders are truly committed and sincere to take the country back to where our founding fathers wanted it to be, free of corruption. Grand Chief Somare wanted the country to stand tall with honor, pride, and dignity among other nations in the world. A country where people can enjoy a high standard of living. And I got a message from my senior Thomas Nickens tonight, where our people can really enjoy a high standard of living, which commensurates with the abundant resources that we have here in Papua New Guinea. And we never asked for it. God blessed us with those resources. But yet, we are still crawling in poverty and in misery. Yet, we have so much. There must be a problem somewhere. Grand Chief wanted his people to live in peace and harmony, despite the diversity of our different cultures and tribes. He wanted law and order to be maintained not only for the people, but also for investors who want to come and invest here, so that we can have an economy that is growing all the time to accommodate the growing number of people coming out of our educational institutions. There is a lot more that can be said about Grand Chief, the father of our nation, but time does not permit me to do that. So as I conclude, I would like to, on behalf of all the former and current public servants and professionals from Western Islands Province, again convey our deep condolences to the immediate family of Grand Chief, the people of Murik Lakes, and the people of ECP. God gave you this unique man, and you have shared him unselfishly with the rest of the country. And he became the father of all Papua New Guineans, the father of this beautiful, wonderful, great nation of Papua New Guinea. We salute you, Grand Chief. Your memories will live forever in this nation, in this region, and beyond. Nui mu Michael Samario, nem nui mbunga nui mua. Wampunga wakai, nema mu wakai we. Pun kono mbilenga, pugu wendi ne mempentanga. Wata appeal. Thank you.